Hi everyone, welcome to the next episode of Cooking with Aunt Fuckhead. Today I'm trying a few things differently than usual. Number one, I'm not streaming and then cutting this into a video, so this is just going straight to video. So leave a comment, let me know how you like this new format where I'm not cutting out of a stream, I'm just talking and telling you the recipe. Today's recipe is going to be spaghetti with meat sauce, and that said, I am going to get started. So, as you can see, I upgraded my technology a little bit. I've got the camera over my stove that's actually attached to the handle of my microwave. It's a very professional setup right here. And it will show you what's happening on the stove all the time, so I don't have to pick up my laptop. You can already see it, and then you can see me sitting here cooking while I do it. So I'm going to adjust the heat on this. We've got a tablespoon of oil in there. I have 2 tablespoons of milk in a food processor, a slice of bread, and some 80% lean beef, ground beef. So step 1, I'm ripping this piece of bread into chunks and putting it in the food processor with the milk. This is kind of similar to how I would go about making meatballs if I was going to make meatballs. So I'm going to hit the lid, and once that's turned into a paste, I am going to add the beef. And because my food processor is pretty small, I'm actually going to break this up into chunks as well. It just doesn't have the same amount of space in it. And then once I've kind of filled it, it's not the whole 1 pound of beef. I'm just going to mix the rest with my hands once this is gotten it started for me. So it comes out looking like this, as you can see on the other camera. It's just a little bit milky, a little bit bready. That helps it hold together like that. And this should be really obvious, but just to make sure, always be careful when taking stuff out of the food processor like this, because this is really packed in there, and there are very sharp blades on your food processor that you do not want your fingers to become friends with. And then once that's all out, I'm just going to take the rest of this beef and just smash it in there and combine it with my hands. And then wash my hands. By now my oil is hot, so my first ingredient is going to go in. It's just about half a diced onion. And as you can see, the bottom is starting to get pretty brown, but the onions still have quite a ways to go. What we're looking for is for them to be kind of translucent and clear, or even brown. And right now they're still pretty white and solid, so not quite there yet. So the next step once this is done is to add the garlic. So it's 6 cloves of garlic, and I think I mentioned this in another stream. I like to kind of prepare my bowls ahead of time when I cook so that I am never wondering what comes next. I'm always ready to just add the next ingredient. So this is 6 cloves of garlic, and then 1 tablespoon of this tomato paste that I see from you. That's all in there. And that's going to be the next thing that we add. Once these onions are done. And in the meantime, I also just turned on this pot right here. All it is just water. But it's going to be my pasta pot. So I have turned that on so that the water might come to a boil before I finish the sauce. And then all the timing is going to be great. I'm literally just going from this to eating dinner. And in case you guys can't tell, I really like to stir stuff. Kind of my bad habit is I can't just like leave anything alone. Oh well. Okay, so now the onions are kind of more where I want them. They're starting to get brown on the bottom, which is going to be great a few ingredients from now. So this is about what we want these onions to look like. You could even go a little bit darker, but I'm not usually patient enough for that, as is obvious. So next in goes the garlic and the tomato paste. Just like every other time you add garlic to any recipe, all of the recipes that I've done so far, you're really just kind of stirring it around. This section is all of the aromatics, so it's all the stuff that smells really good, really strong. So it only goes in for about a minute, really kind of just until it's heated up and you can smell it when it starts cooking. Otherwise, it's going to burn your garlic. So, since that's been in there for about that long, the next step is to add a liquid. This is a 1/4 cup of tomato juice that has come from a can of diced tomatoes. So all I've done is I have opened it up and I've drained all of the liquid out, which turns into about 1/2 cup. And then, just kind of to make as few dishes as possible, I have added 2 tablespoons of oregano into the same jar. That's why it looked a little bit weird. This is just dried oregano. It's nothing fancy. You can get it from the spice aisle in your grocery store, which is next to the baking aisle. And that just goes in for a few seconds. So that it can kind of like loosen up the brown on the bottom of the pan if you've got any from your onions. And then in goes all of the meat. the goal in this step is to kind of like break apart the meat so that you can incorporate all the onions, all the garlic, the tomato paste, oregano, and a little bit of the juice. But the real goal here is to brown the meat. So that takes a few seconds. I'm putting that here so I don't burn my hand because it's starting to get hot. And all we're just looking for is for this meat to start to brown and cook so that we can actually eat it without dying. And you don't want to stir it too often or it's never going to brown, but you do want to make sure that you're moving it around at least enough so that it doesn't over brown and you're getting all of the red spots to actually cook. It still has a little bit of pink if you go kind of digging around for it. Alright, so that looks pretty done to me, and if it's not 100% done, that's okay because it still does have a little bit of cooking left to do. So the next step is to add the tomatoes. So first I'm going to add the crushed tomatoes. Let me turn my camera back on. So first I'm going to add the crushed tomatoes. That's just pretty simple. That way I get some liquid in there, and the beef kind of simmers rather than browning. So I'm going to stir that around a little bit, and then add the rest of the diced tomatoes. So we already drained these and took the liquid out in the first step, so now I am just taking the diced tomatoes that are left and adding them for a little bit of texture. And I do want to make sure that this isn't too hot because now that it's primarily liquid, it'll kind of start to like bubble and pop like that. I don't know if you're able to see it so that it vents. It will kind of like spout up suddenly from somewhere where it's able to kind of push the air through as it heats. And I don't really want it to just kind of like be popping and spluttering and tossing liquid all over my kitchen. So this is just kind of gonna go until it's a little bit more incorporated and it's able to kind of heat evenly. And then this is going to actually go for, it says for 30 minutes. I don't think it needs that long. It's mostly just trying to make sure that everything is kind of the same flavor. So I am going to reduce the heat on that since it is up to heat, as you can possibly see as I'm like looking at the camera. I don't know that you can see it like moving in there. And we don't want it to get too hot, but to stay, you know, at a nice temperature. So what I'm going to do is I am going to leave this on. I'm going to let it simmer. I'm going to stir it occasionally, but I'm not going to leave it for the full 30 minutes. Instead, what I am going to do is break from what the recipe's instructions are and instead just go by how long it's going to take me to make the pasta. So all pasta, when you buy the box, says how long the cooking time is. In this case, it's 12 minutes, right there on the box, so that you always know how long it's going to take. So this is going to take 12 minutes once the water boils, and it's thinking about it, but it's not quite there yet. And you'll be able to watch both pots. So I'm going to let that go until it's boiling, and then we're going to add the pasta and go for 12 minutes. Okay, so the water is boiling. I'm just going to put this lid up there for right now and dump the pasta in. And then this is going to go for 12 minutes. The pasta is taller than this pot, so once it starts to get hot, I kind of like crush it down and shove it the rest of the way into the pot. Some people break theirs in half so that it fixes that problem. And I'm going to add a little bit of salt to the water, just a random handful. The salt's going to help get the water back up to a boil because we want it to be 12 minutes of boiling water, not 12 minutes of dead water. I'm going to twist these around a little bit so that everything is at least in the water. And then it should fall in a little bit more as it boils. Comes back to a boil anyway, and then goes for 12 minutes. Okay, so many taste tests later, the pasta is now done. So I'm going to shut off that burner, take it over to my sink, and dump it all in the strainer. And then that is it for this recipe. So I am going to take some Parmesan cheese. This is about a 1/4 cup, and just kind of dump it into the sauce. Just so it thickens up a little bit more, nothing crazy. Stir it in. Give it a second to kind of melt. And while I do that, I am going to start serving. And then one final finishing touch, a little bit more Parmesan cheese on top because you can never have too much Parmesan cheese. And then you have a dish that looks like that. So that's it for this episode. Like I said, this is pretty easy. The simmering does take a little bit more time at the end, but it's pretty simple. Low key doesn't need a ton of attention, and you can do all of that while your pasta is cooking and you're waiting for your water to boil. So that is it. Leave a comment down below if you liked this format, if you like this recipe, if there's any suggestions, comments, questions, concerns that you have for me. And I will catch all of you guys next time. Thanks for tuning in.